My parents said the house was never mine. The property tax notice arrived with my name. Before we continue, subscribe and comment your country or city below, backhand index pointing down. Let's see how far this powerful story travels. The sound of a heavy hammer smashing against drywall echoed through the hallway. It was Saturday morning, a time when most families were having breakfast or watching cartoons, but my family was different. My parents, David and Susan, were already hard at work destroying the only home I had ever known. I walked out of my bedroom, rubbing sleep from my eyes, and froze. My father was standing on a ladder, swinging a sledgehammer into the wall that separated the kitchen from the living room. Dust covered his expensive polo shirt. My mother was standing nearby, holding a clipboard and looking critical. "Higher, David," she barked. "We need an open concept if we want to get the asking price." I felt a cold pit form in my stomach. They had been threatening to sell Grandpa Henry's house ever since he passed away 6 months ago, but seeing them actually tearing it apart made it real. I lived here. I had lived here for the last 5 years, taking care of Grandpa while they were finding themselves in Florida. They had never lifted a finger to help fix the roof or mow the lawn, but now that he was gone, they were suddenly very interested in the property. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly. My father didn't even look down. "Renovating," he grunted. "This place is a dump. We need to spruce it up before the open house next week." "Open house," I repeated, stepping over a pile of plaster debris. "You can't sell the house next week. I haven't even found a place to live yet." My mother turned to me, her eyes cold and dismissive. She adjusted her glasses and tapped her pen against the clipboard. "Jason, we talked about this. You've had 6 months to figure it out. We can't keep supporting a 25-year-old man forever. This is a prime market. We have to sell while the iron is hot." "Supporting me?" That was a laugh. "I paid the utility bills. I bought the groceries. I paid for the repairs when the water heater exploded last winter. They hadn't sent a dime." "I pay the bills here, Mom," I reminded her. "I paid the property tax last year because you said you forgot. I kept this house standing." She waved her hand as if shooing away a fly. "That was rent, Jason. You were living here rent-free in your grandfather's house. Paying a few bills is the least you could do. But now, we are the owners, and we are selling. You have until Friday to get your boxes out of the basement." I walked into the kitchen to make coffee, but the counter was covered in dust. My brother, Ryan, was sitting at the table, scrolling through his phone. Ryan was the golden child, the one who went to business school and drove a leased BMW, even though he constantly asked our parents for money. He looked up and smirked. "Better start packing, bro. I heard studio apartments in the bad part of town are cheap." Ryan was already counting the money from the sale. He had been talking about buying a boat all week. "You're okay with this?" I asked him, gesturing to the hole in the wall. "Grandpa built that wall himself." Ryan shrugged. "Grandpa is dead, Jason. Get over it. The land value alone is worth $500,000. Mom and Dad promised me a cut so I can invest in my startup. You should be happy for us. We're finally getting what we deserve after dealing with the old man's stubbornness for years." I clenched my fists. Dealing with him? They visited twice a year at Christmas and Thanksgiving. I was the one who drove him to dialysis. I was the one who listened to his stories. They were just waiting for him to die. Later that afternoon, the mailman arrived. I was sitting on the front porch, trying to clear my head. The noise of the construction inside was giving me a migraine. The mailman, Mr. Henderson, walked up the path with a stack of envelopes. He had known Grandpa for 30 years. "Afternoon, Jason," he said, tipping his hat. "Sorry for your loss. I still miss seeing Henry on the porch." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Thanks, Mr. Henderson. It's been tough." He handed me the mail. "Looks like tax season is starting early," he commented, pointing to a thick, official-looking envelope on top. "County Assessor's Office. Make sure your parents see that. Don't want any penalties." I took the stack. "I'll give it to them," I said. As he walked away, I looked down at the envelope. It was heavy. The return address was indeed the County Property Tax Division. It was addressed to the property, 42 Oak Street. But something caught my eye. Usually, bills for the house came addressed to the estate of Henry Miller, or, lately, to David and Susan Miller. This one was different. I looked closer at the plastic window on the envelope. My heart skipped a beat. It didn't say David Miller. It didn't say Susan Miller. It said, in clear, black block letters, Jason Miller. I blinked, thinking maybe I was seeing things. I rubbed the plastic with my thumb. No, it was definitely my name. Jason Miller, 42, Oak Street. Why would the property tax bill be addressed to me? I wasn't the owner. My parents had told me 1,000 times that Grandpa left everything to them in his will. They said I was just a guest who had overstayed his welcome. My hands started to shake. I remembered the last conversation I had with Grandpa in the hospital. He was weak, barely able to speak, but he had grabbed my hand with surprising strength. "I fixed it, Jace," he had whispered. "I made sure they couldn't take your home." At the time, I thought he was just delirious, talking about the repairs we did on the roof. I thought he meant the physical house was strong. But now, staring at this envelope, a different possibility bloomed in my mind. I stood up, looking back at the front door. My father was yelling about saw blades. They had no idea this letter was in my hand. I didn't open it on the porch. I didn't want them to see. I shoved the envelope under my shirt and walked around the side of the house to the old shed. This was my private space, the only place they hadn't invaded yet. I sat on an overturned bucket and pulled out the envelope. Carefully, I tore open the top. I pulled out a trifold document. It was the annual notice of assessed value and property tax statement. I scanned the document, my eyes darting over the numbers and legal jargon. Then I found the section labeled Ownership Information. There it was again. Owner of record, Jason Miller. Date of transfer, October 14th, 2025. That date, that was 2 weeks before Grandpa died. I felt the breath leave my lungs. He hadn't left it to them in a will. He had transferred it to me while he was still alive. He had given me the house before he even passed away. A quitclaim deed. That's what it had to be. He must have done it with his lawyer without telling anyone. A wave of adrenaline crashed over me. If this document was right, my parents were not renovating their house. They were destroying my house. They were trespassing. They were threatening to evict the actual owner. I wanted to run inside and scream it in their faces, to shove the paper under their noses and watch them crumble. But I stopped myself. I needed to be sure. I needed more than just a tax bill. I needed the deed. I checked the time on my phone. It was 3:30 p.m. The county clerk's office closed at 5 p.m. I had just enough time. I ran to my car, a beat-up sedan parked on the street because Ryan's BMW was taking up the entire driveway. I peeled out, driving faster than I should have. My mind was racing. If this was true, everything changed. The bullying, the threats, the feeling of helplessness, it would all be over. But if it was a clerical error? If it was a mistake? I pushed that thought away. Grandpa didn't make mistakes. The county clerk's office smelled like stale coffee and old paper. I waited in line, tapping my foot impatiently. When I finally got to the counter, a woman with kind eyes asked how she could help. "I need to check the deed on a property," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. 42 Oak Street. She typed into her computer. "One moment, hon." The silence stretched for an eternity. I watched her eyes scan the screen. She frowned slightly, then nodded. "Okay, here it is. Last recorded transfer was October of last year. From Henry Miller to Jason Miller." She looked up at me. "Are you Jason?" "Yes," I breathed. Can I get a certified copy of that deed? Today." "Sure thing," she said. "It'll be $10. I handed her the cash, my hands trembling. She printed out a document with a raised gold seal. It was real. It was official. I owned the house. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the clerk's office, holding the deed. I read every word. Grandpa had signed it with a shaky hand, but the signature was unmistakable. There was a note attached in the file, something the lawyer must have filed with it. It was a simple affidavit stating, "Transfer of property for love and affection, and for years of dedicated caregiving." Tears pricked my eyes. He had seen me. All those nights I stayed up with him, all the weekends I missed out on parties to fix the porch, he appreciated it. He knew my parents would try to cut me out. He knew they would sell the house for a quick buck and leave me with nothing. So he made sure the house never went through probate. It never went into the estate. It went straight to me. I wiped my face. I wasn't just a sad, grieving grandson anymore. I was the homeowner. And it was time to go home. When I pulled back into the driveway, there was a strange truck parked next to Ryan's BMW. It had "Snyder Demolition" written on the side. My stomach dropped. I ran toward the house. The front door was wide open. Inside, two men I didn't know were carrying out the antique cabinets from the kitchen, Grandpa's favorite oak cabinets. My mother was pointing at the fireplace. "That needs to go too," she was saying. "It makes the room look dated." "Stop!" I yelled, stepping into the living room. The sound of my voice made the workers pause. My father turned around, looking annoyed. "Jason, don't start. These men are professionals. We're clearing out the junk." "It's not junk," I shouted. "And you can't tear out the fireplace. I live here." My father laughed, a cruel, barking sound. "Not for long. In fact, Ryan found a listing for a basement apartment 3 towns over. We printed it out for you. Now get out of the way." I didn't move. I stood planted in the center of the room. "I said stop," I repeated, lower this time. "Tell them to put the cabinets back." My mother walked over to me, her face red with anger. "Who do you think you are?" she hissed. "We are the owners of this house. We are the ones paying for this renovation. You are a guest who is wearing out his welcome very quickly. If you say one more word, I will call the police and have you escorted out for trespassing." "Call them," I said. The room went silent. My mother blinked, confused by my defiance. Usually, I backed down. Usually, I just took the abuse. But not today. "What did you say?" she whispered. "I said call the police," I challenged her. "In fact, I'll do it for you." I pulled out my phone. My father stepped forward, looking like he was about to grab the phone from my hand. "Don't be an idiot, Jason. You're going to embarrass yourself." "I'm calling the non-emergency line," I said, dialing. "I'm reporting a break-in and property damage." Ryan laughed from the couch. "A break-in? You're delusional, man. It's Mom and Dad's house." I put the phone to my ear. "Hello. Yes, I have an issue at 42 Oak Street. I have intruders in my home destroying property. Yes, I'm the owner. Please send an officer." My parents stared at me in disbelief. Then my father's face turned purple. "You little brat," he roared. "You filed a false police report? Do you know what they do to people who do that? They arrest them." He turned to the workers. "Keep working. Ignore him. He's having a mental breakdown." The workers looked unsure. They put the cabinets down on the floor but didn't leave. They sensed the tension was about to explode. While we waited for the police, the atmosphere was suffocating. My mother paced back and forth. "I can't believe you," she muttered. "After everything we've done for you. We let you live here. We fed you." "I bought my own food," I corrected. "And I paid the electric bill last month." She ignored me. "We're going to sue you for this, Jason. We're going to sue you for distress and for wasting our time. Once the police get here and see the will, you'll be in handcuffs." "Do you have the will?" I asked calmly. "Of course we have the will," my father snapped. "It's in the safe. Grandpa left everything to my beloved children." "That's us. Not you. Did you probate it?" I asked. My father hesitated. We're in the process. But it doesn't matter. We are the next of kin." He was bluffing. They hadn't probated it because they didn't want to pay the estate taxes yet. They were trying to sell the house under the table or quickly flip it before the paperwork caught up. 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out. I recognized one of them, Officer Miller, no relation, a guy I went to high school with. He looked serious. My father rushed out to meet them on the lawn, putting on his best, respectable citizen act. "Officers, thank goodness you're here," he said, shaking their hands. "My son is having a bit of an episode. He's refusing to let us renovate our own property. He's very disturbed." Officer Miller looked at me. "Jason, is that true?" I walked out onto the porch. "No, officer. These people are destroying my house. I asked them to stop, and they refused." My mother chimed in. "His house? He's a squatter. He's been crashing here since my father died. We are the owners." Officer Miller held up a hand. "Okay, let's settle this. Who has the documentation?" "We do," my father announced. He ran inside and came back with a photocopy of Grandpa's will from 10 years ago. "See, I leave my estate to David and Susan Miller." He handed it to the officer with a smug grin. "There. Case closed. Now please remove him." Officer Miller looked at the will. "This looks standard," he said. He turned to me. "Jason, if this is the will, they have the right to ask you to leave. You can't block renovations." "That will covers the estate," I said, reaching into my back pocket. "But the house isn't part of the estate." I pulled out the folded deed with the gold seal. "Because the house was transferred to me before he died." I handed the deed and the property tax bill to the officer. My parents froze. Ryan, who had come out to watch the show, stopped chewing his gum. Officer Miller opened the deed. He read it carefully. He looked at the date. He looked at the seal. Then he looked at the tax bill. He showed the documents to his partner. They nodded in agreement. Officer Miller turned back to my parents. His demeanor had changed. He wasn't looking at respectable citizens anymore. He was looking at suspects. "Mr. Miller," the officer said to my father, "this is a certified quitclaim deed recorded with the county. It lists Jason Miller as the sole owner of this property. The transfer predates the death of Henry Miller." My father's jaw dropped. That's a fake." "He printed that on his computer." "It has the county clerk's embossed seal, sir," the officer said sternly. "It's not a fake. According to this, Jason owns the house. Which means you are damaging his property." "No!" my mother shrieked. "That's impossible. Dad would never give the house to him. He's a nobody." She lunged for the paper, but the officer stepped back. "Ma'am, step back. Disorderly conduct will get you arrested." My father was turning pale. "There must be a mistake," he stammered. We already spent the deposit money from the buyer. We promised them the house next month." "You sold a house you didn't own?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "That sounds like fraud, Dad." My father looked like he was going to be sick. "I didn't sell it yet. We just took a down payment for the pre-sale." "That's still fraud," the officer noted. "But that's a civil matter. Right now, the criminal matter is trespassing and property damage." The officer turned to me. "Jason, do you want to press charges for the damage to the wall and the cabinets?" I looked at the hole in the wall. I looked at the cabinets sitting on the dusty floor. Then I looked at my parents. They looked terrified. For the first time in my life, they were afraid of me. Or rather, they were afraid of the power I held. "I don't want to press charges," I said slowly. My parents let out a breath they had been holding. "But," I continued, "I want them off my property. Immediately. And I want the contractors to leave." The officer nodded. "You heard the man. Pack up your tools," he told the workers. The workers didn't need to be told twice. They grabbed their gear and bolted. "Jason, please," my mother pleaded, changing her tune instantly. "We can talk about this. We're family. You don't need a whole house to yourself. We can split it. We can work something out." She reached out to touch my arm. I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I said. "You gave me until Friday to get out? Well, I'm giving you 10 minutes. 10 minutes, Ryan shouted. My Xbox is inside. My clothes. You have 10 minutes to grab your essentials, I said. Everything else, I'll put in boxes and leave on the curb tomorrow. But right now, I want you out. Ryan looked at Dad. Do something. My father shook his head. He knew he was beaten. The deed was ironclad. The next 10 minutes were a blur of frantic activity. My parents and Ryan ran in and out of the house, grabbing bags, laptops, and coats. The police officers stood by the door, arms crossed, ensuring there was no violence. Neighbors had started to gather on the sidewalk, watching the spectacle. Mrs. Higgins next door was recording on her phone. My mother tried to hide her face as she carried out her purse and a box of jewelry. Time's up, Officer Miller called out. My father walked out last, holding a box of files. He stopped in front of me. You think you've won, he spat. But you'll never be able to afford the taxes. You'll lose this place in a year. I already paid the taxes, I said calmly. And I have a job. I'll be fine. Goodbye, Dad. They got into their cars, Dad and Mom in their sedan, Ryan in his BMW, and peeled away, leaving tire marks on the asphalt. The police officers tipped their hats to me. If they come back and bother you, call us, Officer Miller said. It's your castle now, Jason. Thank you, officer, I said. They drove away, and silence finally descended on 42 Oak Street. I turned and looked at the house. It was wounded. The front door was scuffed, the living room wall was smashed open, and dust was everywhere. But it was still standing. It was still strong. I walked inside and closed the door. I locked it. For the first time, the click of the deadbolt felt like safety, not a trap. I walked into the living room and touched the jagged edge of the broken drywall. I could fix this. I knew how. Grandpa had taught me. I went to the kitchen and picked up the phone. I dialed the number for Mr. Henderson, Grandpa's lawyer. I needed to let him know the cat was out of the bag. He answered on the first ring. Mr. Henderson, it's Jason. I found the tax bill. The old lawyer chuckled. I figured you would eventually. Your grandfather wanted you to find it in your own time. He wanted you to stand up for yourself. I did, I said. They're gone. Good, Mr. Henderson said. Now, there's one more thing. Your grandfather left a savings account in your name. He put it in a trust so your parents couldn't touch it. It's for repairs. And for your future. There's about $50,000 in there. I dropped the phone. $50,000? That was enough to fix the wall, restore the cabinets, and pay the taxes for years. I sat down on the floor, right in the middle of the dust, and started to cry. Not sad tears. Relieved tears. Tears of a man who had been holding his breath for 25 years and could finally exhale. The next few weeks were busy. I hired a contractor, a friend of mine, not the hacks my parents used, to fix the wall. I painted the living room a warm yellow, a color Grandpa would have liked. I moved my stuff out of the small back bedroom and into the master suite. It felt strange at first, sleeping in the big room, but I got used to it. My parents tried to call a few times. I let it go to voicemail. They sent long text messages, oscillating between begging for money, apparently the pre-sale lawsuit was going badly for them, and yelling at me for being ungrateful. I didn't reply. I blocked their numbers. Ryan showed up once, drunk, banging on the door at midnight demanding to be let in. I called the police, and they took him away to dry out. One evening, I was sitting on the porch, watching the sunset. The house was quiet, peaceful. The property tax notice was framed and hanging in the hallway, a reminder of the day everything changed. I looked out at the lawn, freshly mowed. I took a sip of iced tea and looked at the empty rocking chair beside me. Thanks, Grandpa, I whispered into the twilight. I won't let you down. I felt a sudden breeze rustle the leaves of the old oak tree in the yard, almost like a hand resting on my shoulder. I wasn't just a homeowner. I was the keeper of the legacy. And for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I was supposed to be.